Welcome everyone to today's webinar, How to Succeed on Google in 2019, or How to Win on Google. I think some of our emails said lots going into today's topic, lots of good information, lots to be learned. So excited that you guys are along for the ride with us today as we dive into this oh so important topic of what it takes to succeed and win on Google in 2019. For those of you that are with us for the first time, welcome. We're glad that you're here as well. I'm glad that you guys are tuned into our webinars. My name is Matt. I'm the founder of Q4Launch, and we do this webinar series about twice a month to really focus on sharing our knowledge with the marketplace, communicating what's going on, what you need to be thinking about, and how to position yourself for success. So we'll share some customer data, we'll share some customer stories, kind of share the real kind of how-tos about things we're working on, things we're thinking about, and try to help you position yourself for success on this topic, of search engine optimization, but also on multiple other topics throughout our time together. So lots of great information. We're glad you're here and glad to tell you a little bit more about kind of what we do and how you can hopefully help yourself with some of this information. A little about our agency. We specialize in working with hospitality organizations, hotels, bed and breakfast, boutique hotels, vacation rentals, small resorts from Singapore to Maui, and just about everywhere in between. So we have quite a wide breadth of customers and are really excited to work with them in that space. And I know many of you fall into those areas and are tuned in to understand what's going on from a Google perspective and what you really need to focus into. So we'll dive into that topic. We will have some Q&A at the end of our time together. I'll try to move through our content together enough to leave time for that Q&A. We'll also have an opportunity for you to take a next step at the end of today's webinar and to kind of further your learning and try to get some help with some of the things you're going to learn on here today. So stay tuned to the end of the webinar for that. Use the chat panel for any questions you may have throughout our time, and I'll circle back to those. So feel free to put them in there as you have them so you don't forget them. And with that information, we will get rocking and rolling. So much to dive into, so we're going to try to hit it all hard. As we look at this, let's take a quick review on 2018. And really what happened in 2018. I'm going to give you a high-level review of some of the algorithm changes. Google has moved over the last several years to making small changes, whereas in the past they used to make major algorithm changes. So we're going to talk to some major changes that were identified throughout the year, but know while we're talking about that, there were small changes made throughout the entire year. 500 to 600-ish small changes made throughout the year. Below are just some of the major ones we saw. The first that was really kind of hit the radar, and I'm ignoring some of them because I really want to focus on the ones that are most relevant to you, was the brackets update on or around March 8th of 2018. It really focused on rewarding sites that were creating authoritative, long-form content and getting mentioned by other authoritative sites. So this was specifically designed to impact sites and to drop sites from the rankings that had a lot of thin content. So there was a SEO technique or tactic used by a lot of sites that would then sell advertising on their site, where they created lots and lots of content, but it was very thin, and they had lots of pages on random subjects to get search rankings, get traffic, and then try to monetize that by having ads on those pages. And what Google did in this update, big part of what they did was trying to crack down on that and really focus on serving up more sites that were serving great quality content and having deeper content than just the very thin content a lot of these sites had. Now, what that might mean for some of you, if you saw an impact in your search engine traffic around the March timeframe of 2018, that you might have had content on your site that was deemed too thin. So if you were impacted by this brackets update, it's an indicator that you might need to go deeper with some of your content. And that's a common mistake we see a lot of people make. Whether you were impacted or not, a lot of people's content on their sites is too thin. And when I say thin, it's not this simple, but the simplest way to think about that is there's not enough words. There's not enough words on your page. So really every page should probably have 300 or more words on the page that are relevant to that one topic you're wrapping around to optimize for search engine optimization with that page. So thinking about that, about 300 words of content is a good kind of minimum threshold. And then based on how competitive it is, you may need more or less topic around that. But that's kind of the definition of thin for that example. And then one of the other changes that happened with this was the number of search results or queries that had reviews in them. So Google made a change in this update as well to include customer reviews in more search results. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some other changes Google has made as we line up to some of the things we think are going to be coming down the pipe in 2019. On March 26th, they rolled out the mobile first index, which basically means Google's search results are ranked by mobile first, meaning that when Google crawls your site, they're crawling it as if they're on a mobile device, and they're indexing and ranking your site based off of the mobile experience that they have. So a great mobile website is very important in today's day and age. Heaven forbid anybody on this call still be on an actual mobile website, right, where you had a separate desktop site and a separate mobile site. Years ago, maybe 5 to 7 years ago, responsive design, where you have one website that responds to multiple devices, became the norm and has been the norm for years. So if you're on a mobile site or have a separate mobile site, you're probably 5 to 7 years behind the curve already, and you're probably being negatively impacted by that mobile first index rollout. They also made a mobile speed update July 9th. So this is a lot of technical information, but we're going to get through it and going to talk about some of the fun stuff on the back two-thirds of our webinar today. But on July 9th, they rolled out a mobile speed update, which basically said they were looking at your site from a speed perspective the way someone on a 3G throttled cell phone network would be looking at it, which basically means they took the slowest possible speed somebody might be able to be using data on, which is 3G, which is very old technology, and then they assumed it got throttled back by the cell phone carrier from a speed perspective. So those two things together make a really slow network. And how does your site perform if it's on a really slow network? And that's one of the things that they were looking at there. And they rolled out a test for that. Honestly, I think the test is a little bit, because of how throttled back that network is, the test is a little bit crazy. But you got to think about your own business too. Are a lot of my consumers using a 3G network, or because that's the cell phone reception available in the areas that I'm pulling consumers from, or that my properties are located in? So you've got to think about your own consumer, your own self within the realm of this information as well, and how it impacts you, and understand design decisions you're going to make, because speed can often be a design decision trade-off that you're really working on. July 24th, they rolled out security warnings on Google Chrome for non-HTTPS websites. And basically, anytime someone uses Google Chrome and comes to a non-secure website, which would be any non-HTTPS website, the Chrome throws a warning that says, this site's not secure. Are you sure you want to proceed? And as you can imagine, if your site's not secure, you probably have a really high bounce rate. As a lot of people, when they get a warning that says the site's not secure, are not going to proceed. They're going to go elsewhere. It's been true for years. It's been said for years that a secure website is a ranking signal. And I think this update from Google just made that an even bigger deal. Again, hopefully nobody on today's webinar has a non-secure website, but you'd be surprised how many of them we still see out there. We rolled out secure hosting for all of our customers server-wide about 4 years ago. So to put that in perspective, it became the norm, I would say, about 2 years ago. We put that in place for all of our customers about 4 years ago. So if you have a non-secure website, you're somewhere like 2 to 4 years behind the curve on that, and you're setting yourself up for search engine optimization issues already, but increasingly so into 2019. The Medic update hit about August 1st, and feel free to ask questions about any of these updates, and I can try to share more insights into them. I'm going through them pretty quick, trying to hit them at a high level, and then we're going to focus our attention towards what does all of this line up to mean we're expecting in 2019. But the Medic update hit August 1st. This was mostly focused on the Your Money, Your Lifestyle site. So health and wellness, financial sites. That's how it got its name, from the health side of its focus, the Medic. We're not going to spend time on that one. Not something we saw impact any of our customers. I doubt it really impacted any of you either, because it's not the verticals that we do work in. But if you are in that vertical and happen to be on today's call, or have a friend who is, maybe something that they need to be taking a look at. And then probably the biggest change of the year that we expect to impact 2019 in one of the biggest ways was the hotel search results design that launched on or around November 21st. We've got some dedicated time just for that part of our conversation today. But that's, while it was designed for hotels, vacation rentals, resorts, and bed and breakfast are all being lumped into it in many markets. Not all markets. It's trickling out to different markets at different schedules, and Google's categorizing different parts different verticals, vacation rentals, bed and breakfast, into that. In certain markets, they're putting them all into that hotel search results design. In certain markets, they're not putting them all into that. We actually wrote a blog about this right after it happened that same week, and had a call with Google about it shortly thereafter to kind of talk through some of the functionality, what we were seeing, some things that we were seeing that we think were actually mistakes, and we're able to get some feedback on that, and hopefully help them get that fixed. But the point is, it's more than just hotels. Like, a lot of people are being impacted by this, and we'll look at that in much more depth later on in our time together. So lots happened in 2018, and there's lots that happened that's not even noted here. I think the biggest takeaway from all that is you need to be monitoring this regularly. Like, Google is always changing stuff. On average, they're making 2 changes a day, basically. So you need to be always monitoring this, or having someone always monitoring this for you, because it's a really big deal. And if you're not paying attention, you can lose a lot of opportunity. So we're going to touch on the why of that here for just a minute. If you look in your Google Analytics, and I'm going to share some data from our customers here, but why do you need to be focused on this to succeed in 2019? If you look at your Google Analytics, I think you will find that Google organic traffic is the #1 source of traffic to your website. It is the #1 source of traffic to all but one of our customer sites that I can think of off the top of my head. And that one spends a lot of money on Google paid advertising, so that's actually their #1 source of traffic. But everybody else that I can think of, Google organic traffic is their #1 source of traffic, which is Google search traffic, essentially. Google organic traffic is also usually the highest quality source of traffic than any other source. So not only is it our #1 source of traffic, it's also typically the highest quality source of traffic. And when we say quality, we're looking at behavior metrics, and we're looking at e-commerce conversion rate metrics. Google, and as it relates to that, Google organic traffic converts into bookings at a higher rate than most other sources. That's part of that quality metric there. So when we look at our customers' analytics, we typically see 40% of their website traffic comes from Google organic search. 40% of their traffic comes from Google organic search. When we look at their revenue that's tracked through e-commerce, about 50% of their revenue comes from Google organic search. So 50% of your direct bookings are probably coming from this one channel. So when you think about that as a marketer, as a business owner, as a director of marketing, as a general manager, whatever role you find yourself in, if somebody walks in the door and says, okay, let's have a conversation about where half of your revenue comes from and understand how important that is to you, it would probably get your attention pretty quickly. But that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the source of half of your direct bookings. Now, I know many of you get online travel agent bookings or OTA bookings from sources like HomeAway, VRBO, Airbnb, Expedia, Booking.com. That's a separate channel. Those are non-direct bookings. But what we're talking about is where your direct bookings, half of them are likely coming from this source. And if you don't know what that number is, you need to get in your data, because you need to know that number. It's really, really important. But the why behind paying attention to Google organic search is absolutely critical. The other reason you need to pay attention to Google organic, maybe separately from Google ads and other paid traffic, is that Google ads and other paid traffic in general is going to get more expensive in 2019. At the beginning of 2018, we said, hey, Google ads are going to get more expensive in 2018. You have to prepare for that. You have to strategize for that. And we were right. We heard that. We saw that. We did a lot of things with our customers to insulate against that and had great success from a Google ads perspective in 2018. But you've got to be looking at that from a 2019 perspective as well and say, there is increasing demand for Google ad traffic. More people are buying ads than ever before and spending more money on it than ever before. At the same time, Google is funneling less and less traffic into that, and they're sending more and more traffic into other areas, like their new hotel search results design, which is a different part of their platform. So there's more demand and there's less supply. That is going to drive prices higher for Google ads traffic in 2019. And if you get a significant amount of your traffic or a significant amount of your direct bookings from this source, you really need to be paying attention to this in the coming year and building a strategy to do this. I was talking to a prospective customer this morning who actually came into our office, and we were talking about marketing investments, and I said, Google organic search and the work you're doing to succeed there is the best long-term investment you can make in the marketing of your business. Google Ads is probably one of the best short-term investments you can make into your business from a marketing perspective. But that's where we got to balance those two things out. Google Ads, great short-term investment, maybe not the best long-term investment. Google Organic, great long-term investment, maybe not the best short-term investment. And the reason being, Google Ads can provide immediate results, immediate ROI. You can see those changes and you can see the ROI from those things happening immediately. But on the flip side of that, Google Organic does not drive immediate results. It takes a while to really start seeing the results you want to see from that channel. So depending on what your goals are, and that customer or prospective customer was in the throes of their booking season, as many of you are, you're in the peak of your booking season. So we need a balance of those two things. We need to be investing for the long term, but we're in peak booking season, so we need to be investing for the short term as well and bringing those two strategies together. So that's the case for why. Hopefully you're with me. Hopefully you understand the importance of it. You probably are, or you wouldn't have allocated an hour of your time on this Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday morning, depending on where you are, to dive into this subject. So then let's touch base on the how. We're going to spend the rest of our time together, about the next 30 to 40 minutes, on the how. And this is kind of an outline for our time together. First thing we're going to look at is keep Rank Brain happy and talk about what that means. Second thing we're going to talk about is to speed up your load time or your page speed. Third is to gain consistent Google reviews. Fourth is to pay attention to your SEO competition. And fifth is we're going to talk about the new hotel search results design and how we think that's really going to shake things up in 2019. So that's our outline. We're going to go deep into those 5 things over about the next 30 to 40 minutes and hopefully help you start crafting a plan for your 2019 SEO strategy. As we're doing that, I want to set this foundation for our time together as well. Remember Google's overall goal with their algorithm, and that is to deliver the best answer to their customer for their question. So I think a lot of search engine optimization people have tried to make SEO super complex, super confusing, to honestly give themselves job security. And there are parts of SEO that are complex and that are difficult and that are challenging. But at the core of what SEO is all about, the core of what Google's algorithm is all about, and the over 200 factors that make up that ranking algorithm, they're trying to deliver the best answer for their customer's question, the best search result for that person's search query. And all the changes they're doing are trying to line up to that. So if you want to know at a basic level, how do I succeed from an SEO perspective? Make your website, make your content, make your everything a better answer for that question than the other answers that are out there, and over a period of time, you will win the game. That's what we're trying to do. Make our website a better answer. Now, then the complexity of that comes in, how do I make myself a better answer? And we're going to talk about that in some detail today. But every decision you're making needs to kind of funnel up to that overarching goal of, how do I make my website a better answer for this question? And how does Google define that best answer is the challenge that we're ultimately trying to solve. So let's dive into that a little bit and try to unpack that a little bit more as we move throughout this. So keep Rank Brain happy. I said that was one of the first things we were going to talk about. First of all, what's Rank Brain, right? You may not even have heard the term before, but Rank Brain is Google's machine learning system that helps Google sort search results. So it's AI, essentially, that is helping them sort search results and figure out what search result is the best answer to this question, and understanding how people are behaving when they interact with your content, because they can track all that, they can see all that, right? So how people behave when they interact with a search result is part of that. So the first tip here is to work to improve behavior metrics such as dwell time and bounce rate. What happens is, as Google will push something up the search results, so they'll increase the ranking for a specific search result or a specific website for a specific term, they will then, through Rank Brain, watch how the users interact with that. So they push your website from position 7 to 3 for some particular keyword or query, and then they watch and see what happens. If the dwell time and bounce rate are positive, and people are engaging with that content, and those metrics are really strong, that's a quality indicator to Google. The same quality indicators we're looking at in Google Analytics are quality indicators here to Google. And they might say, okay, that our users love that. Their behavior when they interact with that search result, and I'm using some technical language here on purpose and removing some of our own industry jargon from it, meaning the hospitality industry jargon. when they interact with that search result, is it good or is it bad? Is the behavior they exhibit good or bad? Do they stay on the page for a good amount of time, i.e. dwell time? Is their bounce rate low or lower than they expect it to be? Lower than whatever goal or metric they're using to measure its success? And if the answer is yes, they might push rankings higher for that particular query. If the answer is no, they're likely going to drop it because they're allowing the user behavior to answer the question, is this a good search result or not? Is this the best answer for the customer question? And if it's the best answer, the behavior will indicate it's the best answer. So how do we do that, right? One of the things we need to be focused on is when someone lands on our site, they need to be engaged, or they need to be directed to fresh, engaging content that's actually based on a keyword topic. If the content doesn't match the keyword topic, you're probably not going to rank in the first place. But if you are ranked, or maybe you changed the content and no longer matches something you used to be ranked for, over a period of time, Google's going to drop that. So we need to be looking at how do we make that content more fresh and engaging, and keeping that content up to date, keeping that fresh and engaging. So fresh and engaging can be described as enriching it with content and images. It can be making things interactive. It can be having things for people to do. It can be guiding them deeper into the site. There's lots of ways to make that fresh and engaging, and to enrich that content with images and videos. Make sure your page loads fast. We're going to talk about speed in more in depth here in just a minute. But loading fast is a part of that as well. If your page is taking a long time to load, chances are you will see bounce rates increase, especially from mobile users, and that's an indicator of bad quality to Google. And then and the number one culprit for this we see is large file size images. So customers uploading, you know, all of our customers have access to the back end of their site. The good news of that is it's very easy for them to edit. The bad news of that is from time to time somebody will upload a 5 megabyte image onto a page instead of optimizing it for the web first. And that's the number one culprit from a speed perspective. When we look at sites that are slow, the number one reason they're slow is typically because someone has uploaded really large file size. And fixing that will usually fix the majority of speed issues. You can get more and more complex with speed, but that's usually what we're looking at from fixing the primary issue there. And then as all of that is happening, as people are interacting with your website, as they're deciding whether they stay or whether they stay on the site and click and go deeper, or do they bounce off and do they go elsewhere, RankBrain sees that good behavior for the traffic they send you, they'll likely send you more, right? If you're proving to be a good answer for their customers, they will send you more customers. That's kind of how it goes. I mean, you can think about it back to the old referral days where like you'd send people a referral. You sent somebody a referral to, you know, maybe it's a restaurant in your destination. You refer them to that restaurant. If you got good feedback from that person after they got back, you'd send more people. If you got a negative report from that person you sent, you might not send people in the future. I know that's super simple, but in a lot of ways, that's all RankBrain is doing, is they're trying to figure out, did I send you to a good restaurant or not? And they're using these metrics to gain that feedback. That's an oversimplification of it, but it's true in a lot of ways. It hopefully helps that make a little bit more sense, get out of the technical piece a little bit and boil it down to something that might make a little more sense to you. I had a question in the chat panel here. What is the ideal file size? It's a great question. The ideal file size is smaller. So that's the answer. I don't care how big your files are. If you can maintain quality and make them smaller, that's better. Now, there's diminishing returns in that, of course. Our goal, I would say, is 250 kilobytes or less. Like, we want to maintain image quality, but keep our file sizes 250 kilobytes or less. And at the same time, moving away from things like massive slideshows, like on your homepage. It used to be everybody thought they needed 10 images on their homepage slideshow, when in reality, the data says that consumers don't sit there and look at 10 images in a slideshow anymore. So the challenge being, if you have one image there and it's optimized well and it's 250 kilobytes, that image loads quickly, even on a 3G network, and the rest of the site can then load. If you have 10 images there and they're all optimized well, you've got 2.5 megabytes, right? 10 times 250 kilobytes is 2.5 megabytes. 2.5 megabytes is going to take some time to load on any network, but especially on a 3G network. And you're loading these 9 images that people may never see. So we have pushed our customers to really do no more than 3 to 5 images. But if we had our druthers, we'd say 1 image, that's it, that's all you get. Now, customers push back on that and they really want those slideshows, and that's okay. but you've got to keep it to a minimum and say, does this really help me? Does this really gain me anything? And then look for other ways to display that information in other parts of your site that might be more helpful. And that's one simple thing. We're going to talk more about page speed here in just a minute. That's one simple piece of it, but it's an important part of that overall equation to say, let's try to reduce the load size of our site and look for things we can do to make that more effective. So another question in the chat panel, how about videos? Are they too large of a file size? Typically, videos are going to be hosted off the site and then play when the site loads. So in that case, you're not actually loading it on the site, and they typically do load very quickly, so not necessarily. The other thing is just looking at how that video is set up. So they can potentially slow the site down, but they have to be done right. And if they're done right, they won't necessarily slow the site down a whole bunch. So if having a video is important to you, which we haven't seen data that like where your main slideshow is, having a video there does anything for your conversion rate. So I will say that we haven't seen data that supports that increases conversion rates. So I think it looks sexy, if you will, but doesn't necessarily drive behavior higher. But then the next piece is, if it's important to you, put it there, test your page speed. If you're happy with your score, leave it. If you're not, it may be one of the things you need to take out. So it depends on what else you have going on that page to really figure out, is your page speed going to be fast enough or not. So, all right, let's switch slides here and talk a little bit more about speeding up your load time and your page speed. First of all, let me say I think there is a massive amount of misinformation around this topic, and I think this topic is used by a lot of web developers to try to scare people into doing whatever they want them to do or buying whatever service they're selling. And we are a web developer, right? So we can say that. I've just seen it from a lot of other people out there using this as a scare tactic to try to sell some service by a web developer. So if someone is using that as a strategy to try to sell you, challenge that a little bit and don't just believe the tool, because for a long time, Google PageSpeed has been out several years, and for a long time, Google.com failed Google PageSpeed's test. So Google's own website failed Google's own test. So something there doesn't necessarily add up, right? I mean, there's got to be more to it. The other thing that's important to know is when you run a page speed test, it's really testing whatever page, hence the name, you're testing. It's not testing your entire website. It's testing that one page. So to put all of your eggs in that one page basket and figure out, well, is this fast or not, is a little bit oversimplified. So there's a lot going on, a lot you need to pay attention to, but I think this has been oversimplified and oversold in a lot of cases, when in reality it may not be as big of a deal. It is a big deal, but it may not be as big deal in the way it's been sold to you in the past. So I say that to honestly to kind of call out some people for the way they're using this as a sales tactic that I don't think is necessarily true, but it is something important you need to be paying attention to. The mobile speed update really targeted the slowest performing websites. So this is important to understand, and this is documented from Google. What they were trying to do with this was to target the slowest performing websites. So think about it like this. They wanted to target the worst of the worst, the bottom, and they didn't give us a percentage, but let's just make one up. They wanted to target the bottom 10%, which means that they weren't necessarily using this to figure out, is someone going to be in position 2 or position 4, right? That's the top 1% that make it onto the first page. It wasn't designed to distinguish the top 1% apart from each other. It was designed to target and penalize the bottom 10%. So that was the original change. Now, I think there will be time in the future where it does start to differentiate the top 1% from each other or the top 10% from each other. But if you think about when I say top 1%, that may not seem like a lot, but there's only 10 pages on the first page, or 10 search results on the first page of Google for most search queries, right? There's 10 results. So the top 1% is actually not that many, because most searches you do have over 100,000 results. So the top 1% is actually probably the top 1 out of 1,000%. I didn't do that math, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what we're going after here. So it's the mobile speed update is different than most people think it is, and it's being used as a sales tactic different than Google actually intended it to be, right? I mean, most salespeople take something Google designed and then perverse it for their own benefit. Not saying it's not important, just saying that's unfortunately a lot of what we're seeing out in the marketplace. As you're working on that, the goal is to load in less than 3 seconds. So that's what you want to be working towards, is getting your site loading in less than 3 seconds. That is also a documented Google statistic. So you can check that and say, okay, that's what we're working towards. Our average site, and we test this regularly, but our average site is loading in 2.2 seconds. Some of the PMSs we integrate with force that a little bit slower, and there's things we're working on and technology we're building to speed that up despite limitations we're getting. But there's a lot that can be done in that area. But that's what we're working towards, and we're happy to be performing about 30% faster than the Google expectation on average. As you're making design decisions and you're redesigning a website or you're working on that, understand that every design decision you make is a trade-off in user experience. Every design decision you make is a trade-off in user experience, meaning that 10-image slideshow, if you make that design decision, it's a trade-off in user experience. It's going to slow your site down. On the flip side of that, not having a slideshow, you could argue, I wouldn't, but you could argue, is a negative user experience, that people really love my slideshow. And people make that argument. You got to then try to unpack the data to understand if it's true. But what I'm saying is, don't make your website so simple and basic that it's a bad user experience just because you want to make it fast. So you could have a black and white website with no pictures, just black and white text, and it would be blindingly fast. It would load instantly. It'd be super responsive. Everything would be perfect, but it'd be ugly, and probably nobody would actually want to come to your destination or book your property because your website was so ugly. So that's kind of the extreme scenario there, but that's where we're trying to balance those things out and being able to make design decisions that are good design decisions that create a positive user experience, and at the same time don't slow our site down too much. But looking at that as in comprehensively and looking at your whole site and saying, okay, does this feature, does this image, does this whatever I'm deciding on contribute to user experience more than it takes away from page speed? And not living and dying exclusively by page speed. Because if you live and die exclusively by page speed, I think you will leave some things out of your site that will help drive conversion higher. And that's what we're ultimately working towards, is conversion. Page speed is just one metric that gets us to conversion. The ultimate metric is revenue generated from our website and the conversion associated with that makes that happen. You also have to know your budget and optimize accordingly. Like you can get a really good page speed at a really reasonable budget, but to get a great page speed, to score, in the 90s or to score whatever, you may have to spend $100,000. And you'd spend that money and actually not improve your conversion rate at all or improve the rankings of your site at all. So you have to know your budget and you have to optimize accordingly. Like just like in most things in life and most things in business, there are diminishing returns as you try to move from really good to perfect. And the closer you get to perfect, the less and less return you see on every next change, and the more and more every next change costs. So you shouldn't have an expectation that your page speed be the same as another business whose marketing budget is 100 times as big as yours, or whose website costs 100 times as much as yours did. What I would more focus on is your own competitive set. And I would say you need to be working towards your website being faster than theirs, not necessarily comparing yourself to an arbitrary benchmark that Google sets, right? So Google may say that 85 is a good score across the web, and everybody needs to maintain a standard of 85. Well, in your business, that may or may not be applicable. Like that may or may not be the right benchmark for you. So you've got to understand that and use that information and take the guidelines, the principles of the test, but then apply some logic to them and apply your budget to it, and then say, okay, now based off logic and based off my budget, what am I really going to do here? What makes the most sense? The last thing I'll leave you with on this particular topic is there are 3 tools to check your speed that we would recommend. Page speed is one of them. Google Page Speed Insights specifically is one of them, but not the only one. We also recommend the Pingdom Website Speed Test, which we've got a screenshot of here on the screen. And that can help bring in other factors like server response times and other things, and then GT metrics. And I would triangulate your page speed analysis across all 3 of these. I mean, triangulate is just a fancy way of saying test all 3, and see what information that you get. Don't lean so heavily just on one tool to be able to do this. And Google has released a lot of new tools. Google's whole Think with Google, there's a lot of tools built into that as well. This is an expanding area. So there's probably other tools out there I don't even know about, because new tools are coming out every day. But these are kind of some of the big three that we really look at when we're working on customer sites. So lots of information there. Speed will be increasingly important in 2019. We absolutely believe that that's true. But we also think you have to understand it in the context of what's going on in the greater world out there, and the design decisions that you're making as part of those trade-offs. Next thing we're going to touch on is gain consistent Google reviews. And think about this. Let's go back to the goal I shared with you a minute ago. Google's goal is to deliver the best result or answer for their user, the best answer for that customer. That's what they're trying to serve up. And we've seen a lot of things in 2018 that have made a bigger push and made reviews a higher priority. We talked about the brackets update, and that they included more reviews in search results with that update. That indicates that reviews are more important to Google than they used to be. We also saw an operating system change on Android that Google owns and drives, where if you had Google Maps on an Android phone, and I don't have an Apple phone, so you may have the same experience if you have Maps on an Apple phone, I'm not sure, but we saw an update where as you were moving around, and if your GPS was on an Android phone, you would get push notifications. I actually just got one. I just came back from a lunch appointment, and I got a push notification on my phone that said, "How was your lunch experience at such and such restaurant?" And I get them all the time. I get them every single day. And that happened, I believe that happened with an update that came out in 2018, but right around beginning of 2018, late 2017. And Google is putting a lot of energy into these push notifications to generate more reviews on local businesses. And if you think about it, Google does all this stuff, and all this work has been done to try to figure out who should rank where. And it gets a lot of technical focus. It's this massive industry called search engine optimization, and everybody's trying to cheat the system. But Google has a user base that they know and trust more than they trust SEO people who are trying to cheat the system. As a general rule of thumb, trying to beat the system, if you will. They have this massive user base that every day is interacting with businesses. And separate from just a website, if you want to know who the best business is, why wouldn't they ask their customers? And they have. They've gone to their customers in droves and said, "Tell us about that business you just visited, and tell us how good they are at doing their job." Because if I'm trying to deliver the best answer for my customers' searches, if I'm Google, and I have user data on how good a business is, that's really valuable, because your technical SEO and how good your content is and how fast your website is, none of that says how good are you at cooking hamburgers, or how good are you at checking people in, or how clean is your unit, or how happy are people with the price that they paid for whatever service it is you're selling. All of those questions are answered by reviews. All of those questions come together to contribute to a 1 through a 5-star review. And Google trusts their users more than they trust the marketers that are trying to drive their business. So why wouldn't they use that information? It's abundantly clear that reviews are an important part of the algorithm. And based on changes Google is making and investing into, we believe that reviews will be even more important in 2019. That they will play an increasing role in who succeeds and who doesn't. We have also seen direct correlation to companies with good reviews having good success on our marketing program. And I'm not saying that as it relates to us, but think about this. Most people, if they find a business and are deciding whether they want to do business with that person or not. And in hospitality, we're in a very personal business. So I think it's more true in our industry than it is in a lot of other businesses or a lot of other industries. But you, as a marketing company, we can drive traffic to a site, we can increase exposure for a site, we can successfully do that. But in times where we have successfully increased traffic, but not seen the revenue growth associated with that we expected, we are often able to draw a direct correlation to negative Google reviews with that. And I'm not saying that Google is stopping people from converting on websites because reviews are bad. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, we're driving traffic, we're raising awareness for a business and their product, i.e. a hotel, a B&B, a vacation rental company. People are then seeing the product, deciding whether they're going to book it. And in the decision of deciding whether they're going to book, they go to Google, they Google the company name, they check out the reviews. And we have direct correlating data that says if those reviews are bad, we will see lower e-commerce conversion rates and we will struggle from a marketing perspective. So much so that in our sales process now, we are actually looking at our prospective customers' reviews to see what other people are saying about them. Because if your reviews are bad and your company isn't good at doing business, chances are we're going to struggle to be successful with that customer as well. And eventually they're going to blame us for their lack of success, when in reality, it's probably an operational issue that is leading to these negative Google reviews, and the negative Google reviews are holding us back from having success in search engine optimization and ultimately driving conversion. Because if that consumer gets to the point that they're ready to book and then sees multiple negative reviews on Google, it's going to stop them from actually going forward with that booking. They will go somewhere else and book. And it's true, like this is true of my own behavior. This past weekend, I was trying to book a vacation rental for a friend with trips. Wow, it's been a long day. A trip with friends. 10 of us, we're going to go. We're going to have a lake trip. Go stay there. I submitted an inquiry. I didn't get a response. I'm like, man, what's going on with this company? Why am I not getting a response from them? I did a quick Google search and saw a whole host of negative reviews. And my immediate thought was, well, it sounds like I don't even want to do business with this company. So I have moved on as a consumer. They had my business. I had decided to book one of their properties. They didn't respond promptly, which led me to do a Google search. I did the Google search and decided I'm not going to book with this company. I ended up talking to them. So they did respond, but I have decided not to book with them because of that experience. And I know I'm maybe, a bit biased, but that's the consumer experience, right? I mean, that's the same thing people do all day, every day. And if you don't have great quality 5-star reviews posted on a consistent basis, you're going to struggle with people the exact same way. So they earned my business, their lack of response, and then the associated negative Google reviews made them lose my business. And we were going to book a 10-person house for the weekend. So that's a pretty decent, or not the weekend, a week in the summer. That's a pretty good sized booking. They just lost a lot of revenue because of the negative Google reviews they had. So let's talk about that for a minute as well. Here's 5 quick ideas to increase reviews. 1, include it in your automated checkout or thank you email. Just simply ask for it in your automated checkout or thank you email. Many of you already have these set up and running. If you don't, chances are your property management software has the technology in it. I don't know any necessarily that don't, so yours probably does. Simply include it in there if you're not. We've had great success making that one change with customers and having and driving that success for them. 2, use our 5-star review app, which solicits reviews via text message. So we used to solicit reviews via email and had a whole life cycle built to do that. We saw results for that specifically declining, so we switched that over. Now we ask for those things via text message, and we've seen results increase. So if you want more information on that, you can go to Q4Launch.com/5stars, and you can see more information about our 5-star review app to gain more reviews via text. Another quick tip, include it in your email signature. Just simple. Have it in your staff's email signature to ask for that. Next, train your staff to ask for reviews when a guest shares positive feedback. So whether it's a maintenance technician out trying to fix something, or it's your breakfast chef, or it's a person checking guests in, or it's anybody, you know who these people are, all of your staff as part of their training should go through training on how to ask for reviews and when to ask for reviews, and you should resource them to be able to do that. Maybe it's a business card with their name on it. On the back it says, go here to leave us a review. You need to train this into your staff. And then incentivize your staff with a bonus if they're mentioned in a 5-star review. So if your company is small enough that you know your employees by first name and there's not a bunch of people with the same first name, incentivize your staff with a bonus if they're mentioned in a 5-star review. I know some vacation rental companies we work with, and with vacation rental sometimes there's multiple parts of a review, but if the cleanliness part of a review gets 5 stars, they have automated it so that the cleaning person associated with that unit will actually get a bonus automatically put in their paycheck. I know some smaller ones that haven't automated it, but do the exact same thing. If they see properties with 5-star cleaning reviews, they will give bonuses to their housekeeping team accordingly. So lots of ideas there, lots of ways to do that, but it's something that's super, super important. And then a question for you, I'd love to get some audience participation on this. What's the #1 thing 5-star reviews have in common? If I can get some guesses on that in the chat panel, love to see what your guesses are. We study 5-star reviews a lot, so I'd love to hear your ideas on what you think the number one thing 5-star reviews have in common. Couple guesses coming up in the chat panel. A guess that a picture. No, I don't think it's a picture. Some review platforms do let you share pictures, but not all do. So it's not a picture. That's not something that we saw. Is it food? Comments on the food? No, nope, not necessarily, especially in hospitality. Not all properties have food, although that is commented on frequently if they do. The number one thing that 5-star reviews have in common, a few of you are getting close, but the number one thing 5-star reviews have in common is an employee is mentioned by name. So a couple people mentioned friendliness, a couple of people mentioned the staff. You were on the right track. The number one thing a 5-star review has in common across the web, not just hospitality, is a staff person is mentioned by name. Customer service is a very personal thing. 5-star reviews are a very personal thing. And that comes back to how you're going to train that and why that's so important. And then how we're recommending incentivizing it there. But that number one common characteristic is a 5-star review is a staff person being mentioned by name, which I tell you that to really drive home the importance of training. You can use all the strategies here on the screen, but this is really a training thing as you work with your team. And if you go to our Google page and you look at our Google reviews, I think you'll see a similar behavior in our Google reviews. When our staff is mentioned by name, that's the most common characteristic in 5-star reviews on our Google page. All right, let's move along here. I went a little bit long-winded on some of those points. We're a little behind schedule, but the next thing I want to talk about is pay attention to your SEO competition. I think one of the most overlooked things in search engine optimization is tracking your competitors and paying attention to them, tracking how fast their sites are, tracking how good their content is. And this is especially important if a site is on the move. But if you want to know what it takes to rank on the first page of Google for a particular search query, go to that page and see who's already there. It sounds so simple, but most people don't do it. This is one of the things when we're creating content, maybe for a blog or for a static page on a customer site, that we have trained our staff to do. It wasn't a part of our original process, but probably 3 years ago, we started training our staff. Before you start writing on such, said search topic or keyword, go look and see who Google has already ranked. Who have they ranked? Why are they ranking? How long is the content that we're competing against? How good is it? What's unique about it? We kind of scan that content to figure these things out and say, okay, based on that, I think I need to do these things to succeed. If we see that most of the content that's already up there is 300 words, our content team might then write 500 words about that and be able to outrank our competition very quickly and easily with 500 words. On the flip side, and I'm simplifying this, but on the flip side, if we look at it, all the people that are up there have written between 500 and 1,000 words, we now know, okay, this keyword is a little more competitive. I probably need to write more than 1,000 words on this topic to be able to rank. If I write 500 on this, I'm probably not going to get on the first page. I've probably wasted my time. So understanding who you're competing against is a part of it, right? I mean, it's why coaches spend all that time watching tape before the game. When Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney were preparing for the big game, their staffs spent hundreds and hundreds of hours watching tape on the other team. It's why the Clemson cornerback or safety, I don't know what position he played, but why he was able to get that interception off the first Alabama play of the game, because he had watched tape. He recognized the formation, and he was able to jump the throw and intercept that ball, which ignited Clemson's entire game, entire strategy for that whole game, and inspired their performance. That came from paying attention to the competition and understanding what they were doing. And as part of your SEO strategy, you need to be doing the same thing. And it just let me put a token Clemson reference into the webinar, which is also a great thing for all those college football fans out there. Hopefully I actually have offended a few Bama fans based on what's going on in the chat panel right now, but glad you're still with us. Hopefully you're not signing off just because you're a Bama fan. I'm actually not that big of a Clemson fan. I just like to use analogies, but we'll move on here. All right, so new search result design will really shake things up in 2019. I believe this will probably shake things up specifically in our industry more than anything else we see in 2019, and it's going to be a really big deal. There's a screenshot of it there on the screen for a search I did for hotels near Charleston, South Carolina, which is where we're headquartered, if you didn't know that. And this was really designed for the hotel industry. Google makes a massive amount of money off of booking hotels on their platform. And Google Travel is a massive OTA of its own. or online travel agency of its own, and Google's making a ton of money there. But the challenge with this design is that it pushes travelers heavily towards online travel agents. So on that screenshot, I'm going to zoom in on it here so you can see it. On this screenshot, the properties that have prices listed, all those prices are feeding in from the OTAs. And if you're not listed on an OTA, you can't get the prices there, at least right now as it exists. There's some change hopefully coming to that will make that a little easier, but that's at least how it's going on right now. But that price is also what makes people most likely to book. I don't remember the exact statistic, but HomeAway at ResFest this year said, I believe it was 84% of their users make a decision on what they're going to book based off of price. So we know price is the biggest driving factor for people when they're making a booking decision. But if you're not listed with the OTAs, it's going to make this harder for you to succeed on in 2019, and it takes up a lot of real estate on that search results design page. So we hate that part about it, that it's pushing more towards OTAs and less down the direct channel, whereas we used to, as independents and as local businesses, which you all are, we used to succeed really, really well in this space, and we're afraid of what might happen and losing that real estate there. The other thing we don't like about this is it's lumping vacation rentals and bed and breakfast into the hotels category. So if you search bed and breakfast, you will actually see hotels instead of bed and breakfast in most cases. And in some markets, if you search vacation rentals, you will actually see hotels instead of vacation rentals. So you're searching one thing, but then Google's actually serving you up something else, which is a big bait and switch. And you need to test that in your own market. You need to understand what's going on there. There's a lot happening in different markets, and every market is a little bit different. But you need to understand what's going on there in your market and look at that, because that can make a huge impact on your 2019 SEO strategy. And if you've seen a decline in traffic since November, year over year, right? And of course, there's some seasonality decline in traffic. But if year over year your traffic has been down since late November, this may be why your traffic is down or your bookings from organic search are down. While it has happened, I will say up to this point, we have not seen a huge drop in bookings and traffic from this change. I expected we would see a bigger drop in traffic and bookings from this, but we haven't, which honestly is a little perplexing to me that we haven't seen more of an impact. It could be that it's taking away from the growth that we should be seeing. In some cases where the growth maybe not as strong as we thought it was going to be, this could be why. But it's something we are keeping a close eye on in 2019, and I think you need to be keeping a close eye on for yourself as well. I had wanted to take a live look at it and demo that for you, but I don't think we have time to do that right now. But let me encourage you to just do it on your own. Go to your own market, search for hotels in or near your destination, and then however you would tag your business, whether you're a vacation rental, a bed and breakfast, a boutique hotel, a resort, however you tag yourself, run that same search in your market. See how that experience is changing. And then also do it for other markets. I would do all of that in an incognito tab on Google Chrome so that you're not being filtered, your search results aren't being biased by your own past behavior. So do that. If you have any questions or you're confused about anything you're saying, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you about it more in depth. Just a little bit out of time on that today. So we've gone through a lot. I want to jump in the chat panel, ask some questions. I've talked super fast to try to get you a ton of information, but I said we'd have a special opportunity for you at the end of today's webinar. So now what? What are you going to do? We've talked about tons of things coming and are already here in 2019. We know SEO in 2019 will be increasingly important and increasingly difficult, and we know that probably half of your direct bookings are coming from this source or should be. So if you need some help getting started, we will do a full search engine audit of your website and your search presence. It's about a 5 to 10 hour package that we usually do for our customers, and we're offering that on today's webinar for $199 instead of the usual $499 to $750 that we would charge to do that. This will give you some very clear action items on what is actually going on, like what steps do you need to take in your search engine optimization strategy to be able to drive success in 2019, and review that with you. So usually we end these with kind of a free next step, but because this is so time consuming, there is a cost associated with this, and we'll get in touch with you to make that happen. But if you'd like to take advantage of that, simply click yes, please get in touch on the poll that's on the screen. If you don't want to take advantage of that, simply click no thanks. Or if you'd like to know more about our marketing services, what it looks like to work with us, we have questions, maybe you're redesigning a website this year and you want to talk to us about that, click that and click I'd like to know more about Q4Launch's marketing services, and we'll get in touch with you on that. So again, if you want help figuring out your next step, we're happy to do about a 5 to 7 hour search engine audit of your website and your search presence and help you get started down that road. Simply click yes, please get in touch, and we'll follow up with you for more information there. If you don't want to do that, simply click no thanks. If you'd like more information, click that as well. We'd like to get about 70% of people voted in today's poll. So if you're listening, but maybe you're multitasking, if you could just vote on the poll, that would really help us out. We don't necessarily care what you click. We just want you to vote on the poll so we can kind of keep it moving along and keep everybody engaged. So while we're getting a few more people to vote, votes are coming in a little slower today than they usually do. So it sounds like we've got some distracted people out there. But click on it. If you're listening to the recording and you're trying to click the screen, I guarantee you that won't work. So sorry about that. You can get in touch with me directly. My email address will be on the screen here in just a minute. Got some SEC football comments in the chat panel. Love those. Question here in the chat panel. We're going to answer some Q&A here. How do you fix or address that as a bed and breakfast should we list as a hotel? So question related to the Google search, the new hotel search results. You can't fix that necessarily in those search results. That's a decision that Google has made on how they're filtering that information together. And no, I don't necessarily think, Cheryl, that you should change your listing from bed and breakfast to hotel, because you will probably cause other issues for that. Hopefully, as Google continues to improve that solution, improve that product, they will create its own category just for those other parts of the vertical. Question here from Earl. Does posting guest reviews of properties to our website count towards the SEO for Google? Potentially. I mean, it's content on your site, Earl, that's valuable content. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, and that is actually some of the vacational technology we've built allows our vacational managers to post reviews of their properties on our platform. So it would make some impact on SEO, not in the same way that getting a review on Google will impact your business from an SEO perspective. So yes, it might impact it, but it's not the same as getting Google reviews, which is what I was talking about earlier, but it will also impact other things. It's really referred to as social proof. So having great reviews for your properties on your website will likely impact your conversion rate. So I think about that as well. So the takeaway is it may not do exactly what you want it to do from an SEO perspective, but it is important. And that's why we built that technology into our future-proof vacational website platform. So lots of questions rolling in here. Going to jump in and answer some of those. We've still only got about 59% of attendees voted today. So if we can get the rest of you to vote, that would be awesome in today's poll. And it will enable us to close that once we get to the 70% voted mark. Question from Devin here. Do you have any recommended online sources for keeping up on what changes and updates Google is making? Yeah, I mean, there's tons of resources. One, you can follow our blog and follow us on social media. I would recommend that, following us on Facebook as well as following us on our own blog and subscribing to our newsletter if you haven't. But two, Search Engine Land is a great website. Following Matt Cutt's blog, although he's not necessarily posting as much as he used to since he's doing some other things in his life, but that's a great source. And there's tons of great blogs out there that you can really follow. Following SEO Moz, SEOMOZ, or Moz Local, kind of two parts of the same company. They're both good resources from an SEO perspective. And that's kind of the high-level updates that are being made. But then follow your own analytics. You need to be in your own Google Analytics on a regular basis, seeing what that data is telling you to really understand what's going on there. Question from Jonna here. We are currently on Expedia since July. It's only brought in about X bookings. I hate them and their whole MO. I get that. I want to leave them, but I don't want to commit Google suicide. You didn't talk about Google's book a room button on the Google My Business page. It has launched in our little town in New York. That's a very personal question. Like that, I'm not sure 100% of the question actually inside of that, Jonna, but get in touch with us directly, whether you do the audit or just ask us a question. Love to help you understand that and how it might impact your business specifically, because it is such a unique question to you, and there's some very specific information we'd probably need to be able to help you with that. So get in touch with us via my contact information on the screen there to try to help you with that. What about Yelp reviews versus Google? Question from Cheryl. Great question, Cheryl. Yelp reviews are important. I would say Google reviews are more important. Lots of things pull from Google reviews, but Siri actually pulls from Yelp reviews. So at least last I checked, if you ask Siri, hey, what's the best restaurant near me? And you can test this, but last I checked, Siri would pull Yelp reviews to answer that question. So if someone is searching what's the best hotel near me, and they're in your destination and you have a hotel or bed and breakfast or vacation rental company, they would then Siri may be pulling that information from Yelp reviews to be able to determine who is the best. So I would say Google reviews are more important. Yelp reviews are still important. And depending, Cheryl, where you're located, and I'm saying this for everybody's sake, Yelp is much larger on the West Coast than it is on the East Coast. Although that's shifting, Yelp's getting bigger on the East Coast. Yelp is also much, much larger in the restaurant business. So if there's any restaurant component to your business, your inn, your hotel, I don't know any vacational managers that have restaurants, or at least associated together. But if there's a restaurant component, it's more important in the restaurant industry than it is in the hotel industry as well. So a couple other factors there that would impact that. How do TripAdvisor reviews compare? Question from Kathy. TripAdvisor reviews honestly are less important than they used to be. TripAdvisor is no longer ranking their search results based off of who has the best reviews. They're now ranking their search results, and have been for the last several years, on who's willing to pay them the most. So by default, TripAdvisor used to rank people by who is the highest rated. Now they rank them on who has availability and is willing to pay us a commission for whatever dates the consumer is searching for. So I would be more focused on Google reviews than TripAdvisor reviews in 2019. But the reality is they're all important. Google, TripAdvisor, Yelp, Facebook, Bing, they're all important. You have to look at where do you have the most reviews coming from and where do you need to gain reviews. So if you've already got 100 Google reviews, but you only have 20 Yelp reviews and you've got 200 TripAdvisor reviews, Yelp may need to be a bigger priority for you. So you've got to be able to balance that together with your own information. So I'd say Google's the most important. Then depending on your destination, Yelp or Bing or TripAdvisor may be in second place. But then where do you not have a lot of reviews already, and how do you change that? How do you get more reviews from that source? So that's some information to be able to kind of help you think through that. I think we have handled all the questions in the chat panel. We are also over time. Thanks everybody for tuning in and attending. If you didn't get a chance to vote in that poll, maybe you stepped away and you want help from an SEO perspective or a website perspective or a marketing perspective, we'd love to help you. Please get in touch with me on the screen there. Love to help you grow your business in 2019. We're in the business of growing people's business. So that's what we'd love to help you do. If you enjoyed today's webinar and you learned something, our selfish ask for you today would be that, we've put a lot of time into putting this content together. We'd greatly appreciate it if you'd leave us a 5-star review on Google. So go to our Google My Business page, leave us a 5-star review. We would love that. Would mean a lot to us to get your feedback. If you have any feedback on what we could do better, or maybe a topic you'd like to hear us teach on, I'd love if you'd email me that. So if you have any topics you'd like to hear us teach on in the coming months, or any feedback on what we could do better or differently with our webinar series, love that feedback as well. Please email me that, and would appreciate that. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we will look forward to helping you grow your business throughout 2019. Talk to you soon.